Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, FF family. Today is Tuesday, August 12th, episode 28. This episode's title, What to Do in a Volatile Stock Market. That's the question one's asking. I know that we had talked about that briefly with our episode, I guess a little jumble of episodes last week. So I think it's a good topic to get into, especially with what's happening in the world, specifically the U.S. for our audience. You definitely know that their stock market's a little bit up and down recently. So let's try to navigate through that. To start us off with, my name is Dylan, and as always, I'm accompanied by Bradley and Nick. Both of these mugs are here to help me out and navigate the market, give everyone a little peace of mind and some guidance. They might know a thing or two about what they're talking about. So to get started on here, I'm going to start us off with Bradley. Bradley, whenever you panic in life, what's the first thing you do?
What's the first thing I should do, or the first thing I actually do?
Great question. And this doesn't have to be the stock market. Let's say it's something going on in your life that you're really creeping up about. What's happening to you? What the first thing you do? And then I'll leave it to you. Then what you should do afterwards?
I'll say probably the first thing I do is, depending on what's going on, observe the chaos and just see everything that happened. So this is funny. A couple days ago, Carrie and I bought a rotisserie chicken, and we took all the meat off the chicken. And listen, there's a reason I'm telling
crazy stuff right now. Next
we took all the meat off the chicken, and we're like, let's try to make a broth or something. So we put the bones and the skins and the leftover. We cooked it for 5 hours, and we added some onions and some carrots. So Carrie put the carrots and onions into the blender, and then she lifted this big bucket, this big tub of juice of broth, and tried to pour it into the blender. I was like, maybe you should scoop it in there. But anyway, she dumped the whole thing over. So 5 hours of this just all over our kitchen, everywhere. And the first thing I actually did was laugh because it was hilarious. And the second Carrie was really upset, I was like, it's okay. Don't worry about it. But the first thing I did was laugh and just see everything that we needed to clean up. I'm like, hey, it builds some perseverance. So yeah, a little bit of chaos, a little bit of panic, but everything was okay.
Okay, cool.
So you laugh when things get chaotic.
Yeah, well, I was like... All right, so Nick, in your life, how do you handle chaos? And then what should you give it? Let me rephrase. How do you handle chaos? And then what was the actual advice you should give people for handling chaos?
Yeah, well, I don't have a riveting story like a chicken broth incident, but in my experience, when I am unsure about something or the future, I'm a list guy. And so I like to write down everything I think about, hey, what's worst case scenario? What would I do if this? I take a stock of any accounts that I have, assets and things like that. And I just kind of I don't know, for me, it helps to feel more in control if I can write things down and be okay, what's the worst case scenario? And what do I do if that happens? Would I be okay? Could I figure it out? And if the answer is no, then I'm okay, what can I tweak today to kind of make sure that I'm good if something like that were to happen? But yeah, I think usually when I freak out, get in my head, once I do that, it's okay, but how likely is that to actually happen? And then I'm it calms me down a little bit. So yeah, I'm a list guy. I'll have a pen and paper too. So I have all this paper all over with a bunch of random numbers and stuff written all over it. But yeah, that's what I do when things start to get chaotic or I feel out of control or uncertain about stuff. And I would suggest other people do the same to a degree, maybe not get as crazy as I do with it, but do some pros and cons, things like that. What if, what's my backup plan? What's my plan B, C, stuff like that. So.
Yeah, I would say, one, that's a good idea because I actually do the same thing. I don't know if I physically write the list, but I'm definitely in my head. This is, okay, what do I need to do first?
Right,
What's a priority you do? That's what I do. But I'm a big princess, and I panic out the gate. I'm like, oh my God, I've got this minor inconvenience that's so easy, but I'm going to complain about it. So I definitely recommend the same thing. Keep it in line. Understand what your actual priorities are. And the first time you can check off whatever it is on the list, your life gets so much better. It immediately feels like that pressure valve just releases a little bit at each time. So I think that's a good topic to get us started with the volatile stock market, because I don't think we want to panic when it comes to this either. I think it's a common trend that we've been trying to tell people. Before we get started on here, one last thing. Everyone in the audience, you might have noticed some FF merch once again. Maybe soon enough, you all might get your chance to get some. Oh, it's clean, baby. So you all might get some opportunities to access some in the future, so keep in mind that might be something we can provide for you. But let's get started in today's news. So we got some economic news updates. So starts off with first, the CPI decrease from June to July. Inflation was at a 0.2% for July from a 0.3% in June. Job market's on unemployment rate of 4.2 in July. How are things looking right now? First, I'm going to go to Bradley. What's your thoughts on the economy? And to start us off, for those that may not know, what is the CPI?
Yeah, so that's the Consumer Price Index. It's essentially inflation. So we've talked about this before, but essentially prices, like, there's always inflation and it always goes up. In a sense, it makes sense. You want it to go up a little, like when you buy a house, you want the value to go up. So you want a tiny bit of inflation. 0.2% means prices went up month over month, 0.2%. June was 0.3, July was 0.2, so it went down month to month. Now, it was funny, like I always wait for the CPI report every month, and depending on the topics that are going on the news, they will change their discussion point. So technically, most people would say inflation was down because it went down from 0.3 to 0.2, but it was still technically up. But depending on what the narrative is, inflation is up, right? So in this case, the narrative is inflation is up, which is, technically accurate. So anyways, my thoughts on the economy. Inflation's fine. It's still over our goal of 2.0 at 2.7. If you look at the report, volatility is in gasoline and food, but those together, I think food was at 0.0, so no price change, and gasoline was down 1.1, and then everything else was up 3.1 total. So depending on the narrative, you may read that this is a good thing or a bad thing. We're just here to speak some truth. The economy's looking pretty good. Unemployment rate creeping up to 4.2 is that's still what I've been nervous, but we actually learned that in 2024, unemployment numbers were exaggerated. And if anyone read the news, Trump fired the head of Bureau of Labor Statistics, like one of the head statisticians, because a bunch of the numbers were wrong and a bunch of the analytics were wrong. And in 2024, the job market was actually worse than we all thought, which was weird because we are all saying it's kind of hard to get a job last year, but all the numbers are no, it's not. And so from 2024 to March or April of 2025, all the numbers were kind of revised and unemployment was a little bit worse than we thought the whole time. So how are things looking? Still pretty good. Even when inflation was really high in the US, it still wasn't that bad compared to the rest of the world, but things are looking pretty good. Just some numbers to look around.
Got it. So TLD on there, we're looking about the same. Still good though, on a good trend. So nothing too big to report. And also, I saw a headline today, and maybe you can shred some BS on it. Is Trump truly firing the job monthly report guy so that way he can fudge the numbers whenever he wants? I read that today in a headline.
Well, that's so yes and no. So yes, he did fire him, but that's because he revised a bunch of, I don't remember. I think it was a she. I don't know her name.
Sure.
A bunch of the numbers they revised through 2024 and even 2025. So it was pretty bad work, but at the same time, is it political? Of course, yeah. But at the same time, is it bad work? Yes. Both things are kind of true. It's political.
So they can happen at the same time.
Right, yeah. If you're a Trump defender, you'll say, well, this person, whoever her name is, she made things look better than they actually were in 2024. If you're like not a Trump person, you'll say, well, Trump's trying to cut the numbers to make it look better for him. But yes, he did fire this person, and yes, this person did screw up really bad.
I mean, also it made Biden look better, right? Because it said it wasn't as bad. Is that correct?
Right, yeah. It made things look better than they were last year.
Got it. All right. Well, thank you for that, Bradley. Now, going on to Nick here. You know, we kind of talk about the Fed a lot, and another headline I'm reading is just this like, there's the Elon Trump feud, and there's this Jerome Powell Trump feud going on. The big question I think everyone wants to hear is the Fed rather, going to cut rates? Do you feel that way? Obviously, you don't have a crystal ball, but do you feel like we're going to get some rate cuts soon, or we're going to stay the same? What do you think?
You know, I don't foresee it, right? And I'll tell you, like, I was actually hoping for a rate cut, and I was even looking into some like ETFs and stuff that go up when the rates get cut. But you know, the more I look into it, there's really no incentive to do it, especially not to the degree I think that would have any like meaningful impact to us. I think, you know, there might be some small cuts, you know, a 0.25% kind of over a couple of, you know, 6 to 12 months, but any significant rate cuts, there's just like, why would you? You know what I mean? I don't think there's any blaring problem that we're trying to solve. If anything, we're just trying not to get ourselves into like a bad spot. And so while I would love for there to be, you know, a better rate and stuff like that. And I think if you look at the housing market, it's flipped a lot from like the buyers and sellers. And, you know, I think there's more sellers now. And so you could argue there's a need for it, right? Because the market's kind of flipped from the last couple of years. But like it really hasn't had a huge impact yet. You know, I think that, you know, people aren't, you know, trying to sell a house they can't afford necessarily. And so there's no economical impact. So no, I don't think that there's going to be substantial rate cuts. I think we might level off a little bit, but this might be the new norm for a little while.
Yeah. I feel like if we get a bad, what month are we in? August? A bad August employment, like a bad market report, then yes, like for the labor market. If it stays, maybe not, because Jerome Powell has kind of showed that his number one priority is that 2.0 number, which still doesn't quite make sense. Like, he cut it 2 or 3 times in September last year when it was in the high 2s, low 3s, so when inflation was higher than it was now. But unless unemployment gets worse, we might be looking at staying the same for a while.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, we've talked about it before in the past too. It's that anytime that you have, excuse me, anytime that we're in this uncertainty, because I mean, whether the economy is on a good path or a steady path or not, it is still uncertain right now. And what's happening is no different than what we've been saying for like the last 2 to 3 months, even when the stock market collapse of, what was it, July or whatever we were in, June. Okay, yeah.
The 3 days in April.
Yeah, that was great. Man, I hope we have another one of those so I can just buy in early, you know, like get that good 20% discount. Exactly. But it's just like there's not a substantial movement either way. So expect, if there's nothing changing, you can expect the worst, I guess, or like get worse, not the worst, right? But it's not going to move in a positive direction right now. It's clearly in a standstill. We're like, okay, we don't want to mess with it. Let's keep it steady. And that's like the best we can hope for right now. All right, cool. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate you so much for that. We're going to move on to some topics for today. I'm going to ask you a few questions with both of you, and I'll piggyback off the both of you for this as well, and we'll see where you both land. I'm going to start off with Nick on this one. So our first topic, should I care about the ups and downs of the market week over week? Do you think it's something that I should heavy focus on? Should I be pulled up my Fidelity or Robinhood and making sure, like, oh my God, my stock went down $2 here or there? Example, yesterday the stock market started off the week pretty poorly. However, today the stock market ended at a near record highs again. So once again, should I care so much about the ups and downs day over day? Should it matter to me? Should it not? What do you think I should do? So, Nick, I'm going to start this off with you.
Nick, real quick to give you some context, I put we put a picture on TikTok of like the end of the day yesterday that the stock market like ended low for the day. And like there's a couple comments like, "Oh wow, it had one bad day." And well, it's like, well, it's just like we're just saying what happened, you know? And then today someone commented, because the stock market was really good, on that from yesterday. It was like, wow, that really held up well, didn't it? I'm like, well, I was just saying what happened. So I guess the point, what Dylan was saying, like, does it even matter?
Yeah, no, I think it's a good question. I would say for your average investor, right, that's saving for retirement, no. I would not look at it, especially if you are going to make snap decisions based off where the market is today. And so I'll put it this way: if you have to ask that question, don't look.
That's a good point.
Right? If you know enough about the market, you're probably going to look. And I'll share this, right? I feel like I have a decent understanding of the market, and I sold some stock. You guys know I love VU. I sold some VU at all-time high, right? I sold it at, I think it was 576, right, which was an all-time high, and it's at 590 now, right? And so, it's, you don't know what the market's going to do on a daily, weekly basis. If you look at it since April, it's done a lot of up, right? And you might think, well, it's got to come down eventually. Well, it can still keep going up quite a bit before it comes down, So when we talk about those buying opportunities, you don't know when it's going to happen. So you want to position yourself to have a little bit of capital to take advantage of it if you're that type of trader. But if you're asking that question, you probably just need to not watch it and not worry about it.
Right. Yeah.
So if I'm not a day trader, I'm probably okay. All right, got it. Bradley,
don't be a day trader.
Someone said this to me. I don't know who it was. Maybe it was a video I watched. Maybe it was you guys. Maybe it was a class. But they said like, "Hey, what's the name of one famous day trader?" And it's like, no one really knows because, well, there's not a lot of good day traders. There are people who work at like major firms who like trade money for more funds and stuff, but no one knows any good day traders because they're not really successful.
Well, I've got a guy, right?
And, oh my god! Give you a hot tip, huh?
Yeah, this weed stock, man. I'm telling you, it's gonna go crazy. It's really blooming, if you will. All right, Bradley. So, do you have anything to add to the same thing? So, that day in, day out, do you feel like it's something we should really worry about, or do you feel like you actually should be monitoring it daily?
I don't think you have to monitor it daily. That being said, just to be honest, I swear I look at my Fidelity 2 or 3 times a day, just waiting for something to happen.
Same.
Even though I know like nothing's really going to happen. I'm still waiting for like my next dividend payment, even though I know it's going to come in 2 months, and I'm just like, just staring at it. Like, so
I just think like, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No,
but
go ahead.
Okay, I was just saying, to me, it's just like fun just to see like my daily, like what's going on.
Yeah.
But I'm not like refresh. Oh my god. Okay, sold. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because also doing that's kind of silly because you can also like set those up in the app anyway, where you can sell at a certain amount if you're truly worried about that. Yeah. So you're also just not using your resources appropriately, which also just pisses me off if you're not doing that. But anyway, I just like. You just need a life. If this is not something you're either like making content for or at a firm in New York City about this, you know what I mean? Like, just go enjoy your life. Like, you will be okay if it drops $20.
Right.
April wasn't that serious. I promise. You are okay. If anything, right now I've gotten higher stock-wise since April. Like, I've done better.
Oh yeah, it's exploded. It's made up all the losses plus more.
Yeah, and guess what? Mm-hmm. It will probably drop again and do the same stuff again. Like, just breathe. It's okay. Like, I don't blame a lot of people when it comes to this because what they do, I actually think it's like a movie thing. really, where people think like you have to get this next big stock or like you fail. You
Right,
know,
right.
I really I just hate to say that, but it just feels so true.
Yeah.
I don't see any other way to think about it. At this point, it's like, well, what else am I supposed to do but to panic each time there's a dip?
Right.
It's so
Yeah.
silly.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's good. Do you have anything else to add to this?
No, no.
All right, cool. Well, once again, I appreciate you so much for showcasing that on there. Gentlemen, we'll go on to the next topic today, which is kind of in the same boat for sure, but should I really hold? So what are we talking about here? We're going to kind of divide this into a couple-ish topics. So the first one, if there is a stock market crash, why shouldn't I sell and get out of my risky stocks? So that'll be the first one on there. And I'm kind of leaving it to the next one. So let's just assume that's the case. So Bradley, I'm going to start off to you. So
Okay.
if the stock market crash has happened, right, should I sell or shouldn't I?
My answer is almost always no, because when you sell, you lock in your losses. Now, if you have bad stocks, AMC, GameStop, whatever, then you should probably sell, take your losses, and know you've lost some money. However, if you have good regular stocks, stuff in the S&P 500, Microsoft, Apple, Tesla, Nvidia, whatever, just leave it be. It's going to come back. So, I mean, the only reason you should sell is if you realize you made a mistake and you got one of the bad stocks out there. Just sell, get it over with. It's gonna suck, but get it over with and go buy a real adult stock and
a
fund,
stock.
an S&P fund. But otherwise, there's no reason, because you sell at a loss. You lock in money loss, and then when are you going to buy again? Because eventually it's going to start going up, and then if it's over that number that you sold at, then you've doubled down on your losses. So let it ride, and then let it go up, and then all of a sudden you're going to realize, usually in a couple weeks, severe issues, a couple months, maybe a couple years, you'll realize, oh, I have more money than I ever had before.
All right. Appreciate that. So, Nick, I'm going to transition to you real quick. Same topic, but add a little context, okay? So, the first part, if there was a stock market crash, why shouldn't you sell? Get on my risky stock. So, you got to answer that piece. The other half to add to this. The NASDAQ took over 10 years to recover after the dot-com bubble burst. Isn't this proof that holding is a bad strategy?
Yeah, so I love it when people use examples from like 2008, because industries were totally different in 2008 than they are today. It's not apples to apples, you know what I mean? And so, let's look at something a little bit more recent. If you bought at the height of 2000 or 22, it took you about 2 years to break even, right? That's how long the overall market was down for, and then it went up. So I think, yes, there is some validity in the question of hey, it can take a long time to make my money back, right? Yeah, good. What's your timeline? If you're 20 years old investing for retirement at 65, then no. I think the answer is you don't sell, because you can afford to wait a few years if you are down. Because the reality of it is you can't time the market. People try, you can't do it. If you want to make consistent gains with the market, it's time in the market versus timing the market. I think everybody's heard that before. So no, I don't see us having a 10-year time to be able to do that, just because the market is different. But yeah, look at your timetable. And I think Bradley mentioned this, a few podcasts back. If you're in a situation where you need to, withdraw anything within the next couple of years, and you're invested in a way where that amount goes down short term, you're invested in the wrong stuff. You need to be invested in more things like CDs and different things like that don't have that volatility. And so, yeah, I would say if you're in a situation where, you do need that money within a small amount of time, maybe you do need to start shifting that portfolio. To Bradley's point, if I'm going to sell, I'm not selling to cash out. I'm selling to reinvest in something a little bit different. I'm just, managing my portfolio a little bit differently like that. But yeah, I think you got to do what's comfortable for you, but don't do it because you think the market's going to crash. Because I promise you, people who thought the market was going to crash, like, what was the movie The Big Short, right? The whole movie was about how he was predicting the crash, and he was right. But how much money did he lose up until then?
Right.
Like, people thought he was crazy, and he lost millions of dollars, even though he ended up being right. So you might be right in like, hey, the market is going to crash, but you don't know when. Even the smartest people don't know when, and it's like you could lose more in that time frame or miss out on gains during that time frame. So instead of thinking that maybe we're smarter than we really are, do the safer bet. Keep your money in there over a long period of time. You will beat any day trader historically. So yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents on it.
And I like that you brought up like a specific crash, and this is why I've said this before, but learning economic history is important for a reason. So let's go back to what you were saying, Dylan, like the NASDAQ.com bubble burst in, I think, late 2000. Essentially, what happened was everyone invested all their money into the internet. New websites, new internet companies, and it was like everyone was doing it. And then all of a sudden the market evened out because everything wasn't the internet, and then a few companies started taking over. Well, the NASDAQ is traditionally technology stocks, right? So very internet based. And this is a quick shout out to someone on X who we posted the video of not to freak out, of Nick saying like, don't freak out, stay calm, and buy if it's that cheap. Well, this person said, like, well, the NASDAQ, how long did it take to recover? It took over 10 years to recover from the dot-com bubble. But the thing to understand here is, one, the NASDAQ was made up of a lot of different technology stocks. The dot-com bubble affected technology stocks mainly, right? It wasn't necessarily the housing market. Two, it did come out. It did come back. So if you invested in the dot-com bubble and then you sold when it crashed, it may have taken 12 years to get back, but Microsoft, your gains would be something like 800% instead of taking a loss, waiting for it to go up. So that's why economic history is kind of important to understand. But sometimes the NASDAQ takes forever to come back. Sometimes it's going to be something like an ETF from the S&P. But understanding that stuff is really important. So should I hold? The answer is almost always yes, unless you've done something stupid. Then just get rid of it and maybe have it be a wake-up call for you.
I think it makes perfect sense. And Bradley, you might want to put this in later. For everyone that doesn't know, before we get started into this, what was the hang on, sorry. I forgot I'm drawing a blank. Okay. For everyone that doesn't know, Bradley, so before we get into this, what was the dot-com bubble burst? So we can make sure everyone knows before we get into this.
Yeah, it was essentially what I just said. Like, everyone in the 90s, starting in 1995, the internet started exploding, and everyone was investing into Silicon Valley and like new startup companies around websites, internet, what have you. And there's just billions of dollars poured into the internet. And a lot of those companies kind of went out of business, and then a few kind of took off on their own. And the technology, we realized, yes, it's very valuable, but not everyone can make internet-based business. So the bubble burst, stocks went down, NASDAQ stayed down for a while, but eventually came back as technology boomed in the mid to 2010s.
Perfect. I just figured someone might want to know later,
Sure.
Just in case you want to add that. All right, cool. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate your insights on this, and we'll go into the last topic for today. Now, topic on your Nick, I'm going to start off with you. If the stock market skyrockets, so we are just riding this wave, right? Should I sell and lock in gains? So we've talked about in the past with the stock market struggles. What if it is exploding like it currently is? Do you think I should lock in those gains? Because we just kind of talked about, don't lock in your losses. So what are you doing, for example, with yours, if yours is seeing gaining?
Yeah, this is and this is probably where me and Bradley diverse from each other just a little bit, because Bradley's a buy and hold for the rest of his life kind of guy. I think, there's this mentality, and we've talked about the fear and greed factor, right? And like when the market's skyrocketing, there's this greed of like, oh, but how much higher can it get, right? And so I think that for me personally, if the market increases substantially, like out of the ordinary, and there's not a huge reason for it, that might be an opportunity to lock in some gains, right? And I'll preface that with, you got to look at your tax treatment, right? You got to look at the type of account you're trading in. If it's a tax deferred account like a Roth IRA or something like that, you can sell positions in there without fear of tax consequences. But let's say it's an individual account. If you've held it for over a year, you have different tax liability, and so you might be a little bit more, ease into selling those. But if you've held it for less than a year, you've got capital gains tax on it, right? And so you've got to consider tax treatment on those accounts. But let's say I've got a stock that I've held for 5 years. It's increased, say 5 to 10% consistently each year, and then all of a sudden, it's just popped 50% in like 2 months. You know what? That might be something I'm willing to sell a little bit. Maybe not the entire position, but I might sell some of that, lock in some gains, reinvest the profits into maybe something else. Maybe take a little bit, set aside for a rainy day. Like I think something like that is okay. But you have to be okay with selling that, and then the stock keeps going up, right? And you have to be okay that you missed out on some of that, because that's very likely too. You're never going to sell at the tippy top. Right. And you're never going to buy at the very bottom. People have to understand that and be okay with it. But I think if you're okay with that, I don't think there's anything wrong with cutting a little bit. I would say don't like sell your entire portfolio, but a little bit. Yeah, I can understand that. And I don't think it's bad necessarily. Just know what you're potentially missing out on. And I would say try to reinvest some of those profits if you can. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on it.
So here's the thing, Nick. You said people ask, like, well, how high can the stock market go? The answer is infinitely high, right? Until society collapses, right?
Which is next week.
Or the apocalypse or what have you.
That's a day before next week.
Like, it can infinitely go up. I mean, think about it this way. Like a few years ago, who even was talking about NVIDIA? Now, their company worth is like $4 trillion. Like $4 trillion is a massive number, right? Like
fake
a company worth $4 trillion. NVIDIA, who cares about NVIDIA? Like we all have like iPhones or Samsung or whatever, right? But NVIDIA, $4 trillion out of nowhere. So like how high can it go? It will go up, like it's going to go up and down, but in 10 years from now, the S&P 500 will go from like 6,400 to, I don't know, 10,000 or what have you. And this is also one thing, like, I do this too, but like people, especially the media, was like, the market's at a record high. Well, it's kind of always at a record high, right? Like several times throughout the week or the year or the month, the market is at a record high. Record low is bad, but record high should be expected. And so to answer your question, like how high can it go? Well, it could keep going up infinitely until like the U.S. economy collapses. We are $37 trillion in debt, so that's, but other than that, like, yeah, it'll keep going up.
So I want to preface a little bit, right? And so when I'm talking about selling, I think if you're holding a fund like Boo or something like that encompasses multiple different stocks, it's interchangeable. I would probably say hold on, right? For the most part.
Yeah.
When you're holding an individual stock, because those don't always go up. There's so many stories of companies that have gone to highs and then crashed. You know what I mean? Especially, cryptocurrencies. And so that's where I would be more flexible with selling positions out is you've got a one company stock. You might sell that. If you're holding a portfolio or ETF, stuff like that, it's probably going to keep going up for the most part.
Yeah.
So I would just a
Nick,
slight clarification.
I accept that. I will accept that.
All right. I love the times when you both like kind of not spar is bad. It's not the right term, but like clash ideas in a good way, where it's like, we have two different perspectives and we all don't do the same exact thing. But as we're contractually obligated to say, Bradley, you're right, we can move on.
Thank you.
Yes,
you're welcome.
I'm going to clip that. That's going to be its own short. Just so
it's not. Is that it? Just Bradley, you're right? Is that it?
I'll probably add in thank you so people know I'm humble at the end, but yeah.
Okay, great. So I think both of you kind of did a good closing point on there. Something that I do personally as like the guy that doesn't have the degree in this, I tend to be a person that actually changes the stocks every once in a while. What I do is I try to invest into things where I'm like, it's purely vibes just to be on the same page. But I'll look at some things that like are growth. So I'll like Google what's working like for stocks, like what seems to be trending or not. I'll do like some history on there to see where it's at. And it's worked a few times. It's definitely not worked a few times just to be on the same page. I want to be very clear.
Yeah.
But I don't do it often. So what I have it reinvest back into itself.
Yeah.
I have my normal portfolio while I maintain certain things. And I actually get nervous because I'm like, yeah, I could sell a little bit of this gain on there and then like either reinvest it back when it drops or something else. But I always just feel like I'm losing, Like that one always is rough to me. So anyway.
I will say I did do some stock realignment over the last week or so. Just like I was looking at my portfolio and I realized I had like some dumb, probably meme type stocks that I've held for 3+ years. And like I've had that mentality of like buy and hold, but they're dumb stocks that you really shouldn't have. So I sold some of them at a loss. So like, yes, I did do that. I usually don't sell, but I did realign to buy more dividend-based stocks because I realized I made a mistake a few years ago and I need to fix it. And I guess it was like a piece of pride that I had to be like, yeah, I screwed up. You need to fix this.
That's 100% what I'm talking about too. It's more of the realignment with what's more, I mean, honestly responsible, but also more profitable in the long term.
Sure.
You know? So that's where I fall into the boat. And I have both of you to thank for that because I definitely took that advice. Anyway, looking at this, gentlemen, so that will wrap up and conclude what we have today as far as topic goes. So I'm going to leave it open for him, but I'm going to start off like this. So we talked about at the beginning of this, like, how do you handle chaos? I would love to hear on this one time. Could be a funny story, could be a learning experience for you. But give me like besides, I mean, it's hard to top the chicken broth example here. I wasn't expecting that because I was going to say, what's a funny example of a good chaos that you had? So Bradley, give me something other than chicken broth where you had to handle it. Come on. I know you got it.
Yeah. Well, Nick and I were talking about before the show old dogs, and Nick, I know your dog is 12, but I have a 15-year-old and a 14-year-old dog, so they're very old. And old dogs have
new tricks,
poo and pee and diarrhea accidents all the time. And I will say this, like, as anyone who has old dogs or even puppies knows that, like, it really sucks when they pee the bed or like get diarrhea everywhere. And I know that's gross, but sometimes I'm like, this sucks so bad. But I'm like, well, you clean it up, you clean them up, you put your stuff in the wash, you make sure you prevent it. Now we have like a bed protector that makes sure no water gets through to our mattress, and you fix it. And it's really not that big of a deal. But that, I have 2 very, very old, close to death dogs that may live forever.
Probably at this point.
Yeah, that have accidents, and in the moment, it's really unfortunate. But like slowly, I've learned to like, what am I gonna do? Wash them, wash the sheets, and go back to bed or whatever.
Awesome, Nick. What do you got for us?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I've been dealing with a lot of that same stuff.
Sorry, I didn't mean to steal your story.
No.
It made me think of my dogs.
Yeah. That's honestly, I feel like my entire life has been chaotic for the last couple of weeks, if I'm just being honest. And I think it's between traveling, different roles at work, schedules flip flopping every other day. It seems like we've got an old dog. My daughter has a new puppy, and they have their own set of issues, and they're 12 years apart in age, so they're vastly different. And and then trying to juggle that with being a good dad. And Allie starts school in in 2 weeks, I think.
Wow.
Something like that. She's gonna be first day of college, which is like, it blows my mind. And on top of that, trying to be a good husband, and it's just like, it's so chaotic. I think you just got to remember, like, what are you doing it all for? You got to remember the people you're doing it for. You got to remember what's important to you. Even, as we're talking about all these financial things and stuff like that, at the end of the day, we're not like Scrooge McDuck trying to just gather as much money as we can to swim around in it. Like, we're doing it to be able to, spend quality time with our family, and to take care of our loved ones, and to feel safe and secure and things like that. So I think that would be my advice: is when things get chaotic, just, try to center yourself. What's real in your life? What's important to you? And, are you taking time to spend in those places that bring you joy and stuff like that? So that's kind of helps me keep centered, is spend time with the people that you enjoy.
Nice.
Oh, well, that was really sweet, actually.
What about you, Dylan?
I say, like, the most chaos that I would have in general, it really comes down to, I mean, it's just like anybody else, right? It's your family. It's what you want to maintain the best life for them possible. And that's no different for me. So my chaos, I would definitely say it's a lot of my kid, in a good way. So, like, for those that don't know, I'm a single dad. I definitely want to maintain her. It's tough balancing being, I haven't been a girl all my life. She has, So when she has, like, even so young, she's developing into a person. And I love her to death, but she's starting to do this thing where she talks, and that's really annoying the piss out of me. And every day it's just something so dramatic with her. And I try to, and this is, like, I guess, a parenting tip for people. It's just, you got to be the example. Yeah. And you can do this thing, like, with your career, or, like, as a parent, I guess. But what do? Do I let her run the show, right, and create the chaos, and I'm just like reacting to it, or do I respond to it appropriately? And that's always what I think about.
Yeah.
So in general, it's not a specific scenario, but it's definitely almost every day with her. So it's just, she's the light of my life, and she's also annoying sometimes, but I wouldn't change it for anything.
Real quick, Dylan. I'll keep it short, but I was talking to my friend, shout out to AJ, today about his 3-year-old, and he's like, man, Benny is like, he's like turning into a person, and everyone's like, once he gets past the age 2, he'll be better. And he's like, Benny will just talk for 6 hours straight, like, just talk and tell me stories. And it just kind of reminded me of you and Cicely.
Yeah, it's just something different, man. Like, when you go through, like, Nick, I know you're going to be a grandpa or something. And so adding on top of that, it's going to be...
Don't put that evil out there.
I don't need something else, okay?
Yeah.
It's just, it's just something different. And you really just, when you go through it, it's either you let it take care, like, you either let it take over you, or you take over it. And that's just how I look at it.
Yeah.
But anyway, gentlemen, I appreciate everyone's time today. Thank you so much for both your insights, today's topics with their news, and recommendations for everyone's finances to keep them on track. Once again, my name is Dylan. This was episode 28 of the Freedom Finances podcast. You can find us at freedomfinances.org. Peep the merch. We might have some opportunities later on. It's great stuff. So have a good day, everybody. Have a good morning, afternoon, good evening, and enjoy the rest of your week. Peace.
Adios.